And welcome back. Today we are flying out the F-14 Tomcat, and right now this might be the best top tier in the game, but with rank 8 on the horizon that might change very quickly. What makes this thing so good? You have the best gun for top tier, you have the best radar missiles right now, at least in terms of quantity versus quality. You have AIM-9Hs, which are okay, they're not the best, but the increased range over the AIM-9J is definitely welcome. And of course you have some of the best flight performance. You can dogfight almost everything. And yes, I am shooting people across the map with Phoenixes, but that doesn't mean that this is that much of an important matter when it comes to this vehicle. Sure, it's helpful, sure it's funny, but it's a little bit gimmicky. But it can be useful on occasion. Why am I showing you these missiles? Because, well, the main way we might get power creeped is exactly through these means. It's not about flight performance that much. At top tier, the weapons as well as the radar set that you use are probably the most important aspects of it. And the planes that only thrive on weapon sets are the ones that are gonna be power crept the hardest, something like the F-4 EJ Kai. Whereas this thing, it will still have some flight performance, or at least a very good chunk of good flight performance to back up its missile set. Let's take something like the EJ Kai. It's almost impossible to get past it in the head-on, or past the merge even, because the radar is so damn good with the AIM-7Fs. Now, the thing is, once you get past that head-on, it is basically done for. Whereas this thing, it's very hard to get close to, it's very hard to dodge all of its sparrows, but then once you get past the head-on, 99% of the planes, you still get absolutely ruined by it. And that's just because of the flight performance. And flight performance is going to keep these planes alive, even though the missiles in the future might not be that great anymore. And that's also why I will be revisiting the J7E very soon here, because it's a little bit different to this vehicle. And it shares a bit of the reasoning that I will give right here. But we're talking about the F-14 today, so let's go right back to that. But before we get started today, thank you to all my patrons and all my YouTube members and everyone looking to buy this absolute fantastic abomination of a decal. You can do so by using the 3% discount code down below. And why the F-14? Well, I was covering the F-4E the other day, and that's a plane that will definitely suffer. Only AIM-9Js. Not the best flight performance. It doesn't have a pulse Doppler. And on top of that, it only has the AIM-7Es. So that is a great example of a plane that will suffer in top tier. It's still somewhat useful because, well, it has a decent flight performance. It had it back then and it still does. It's definitely not going to win many contests anymore. But something like the MLD, something like the Kafir C7, especially if it gets something like Python 3s, something like the J7E, those planes will struggle the least amount when it comes to the power creep, because the flight performance can actually somewhat make up to the lack of good armament. Sure, the J7E doesn't have good radar missiles, it doesn't even have a working radar. The thing is, it does have 4 PL5s, and they're some of the best IR missiles in the game. They're not gonna win any prizes when it comes to average game effectiveness, but they make the plane work, because the flight performance of it is actually good enough. Now, whereas you get something like the F4J, the F4 EJ Kai, the, well, Mirage F1C is not a great example, but it's a plane with decent missiles, mostly the IR missiles, because the 530 Supers are kind of dog shit. I'm talking about the F1, not the Mirage 2000, because those F530s or 530s are actually pretty damn good. If your only gimmick is good weapons, if your enemy gets better missiles and more primarily longer range, faster and maybe more agile missiles, you're gonna lose that joust every time. And if you have to go full on dodging, your boat can't really use your missiles, the guy with the better flight performance is most likely going to win. And if your enemy team is completely consisting out of vehicles with very good flight performance, but no ability to defend themselves, they're of course going to die. Something like the F8s, for example. If you run into a bunch of F8Es, you're probably just going to clap them. But if you have a very nice balance of a good flight performance with good weapons, the power creep is not going to affect you that much. Of course, if they add something like an F-15 with AMRAAMs, of course, if they're going to add these absolute ridiculous planes, you are going to struggle. But you might still have a chance, and you want to be in a vehicle that might actually stand tall through the test of time, because that's the main issue here. The F4J and the EJ, most of the Phantoms really are gonna be struggling. and they're gonna be struggling pretty damn hard. Now with the EJK you might actually be able to make it so that people don't get past your head-on. But what happens? And I'm not sure what variation of the AIM 7 this would be, or what AIM 120. What happens when you get a vehicle that has better flight performance than you, with a similar or maybe a better radar even, that has a better missile to shoot at you as well? The EJK's advantage that it could lock out these head-ons and make sure that you could not actually get past it now gets nullified by the fact that the enemy has a better missile to do exactly what you are trying to do. You can't get close and you can't outfly it, because guess what? The plane is just not maneuverable enough or fast enough. It doesn't matter, you need one or the other, and the Phantoms are simply not maneuverable or fast enough. The F-4E and the F-4F somewhat are, but the F-4F doesn't even have sparrows at all, and well, the F-4E, which I made a video on pretty recently, just ain't it really either. So I think that this kind of plane will do fine. It's probably gonna survive the longest out of all the jets that we have right now. But there's one more issue. This thing is extremely hot, and it's the same thing as with the MLD, which is a plane I forgot to mention, but it's also definitely up there. Amazing flight performance, and it has the R24s. They're very good. The issue is you only have 2 of them, but if it's like a small match, if it's like a 1v1 or something like that, it might be completely okay. In a team fight, not gonna be as important. You're just not gonna have that much of a presence because the 23mm aren't that fantastic. Sure, it hits pretty hard when you do hit, but we've all been there. It's a fucking water pistol, and it has the ballistics of one as well. Sure, it hits extremely hard, but connecting at Mach 1 is definitely not an easy feat. So, what is the F-14 really like? Well, you have a good radar, you have AIM 7Fs, so you can lock out most of the people in the head-on. People have to go defensive before they even merge. And then you have an airframe that's good enough to contest basically everything in a dogfight. And some of you might say, what about the J7E? What about the Kafir C7? What about the MLD? What about the MLA? What about the Mirage 2000? Let me tell you, if you sweep these wings out and you just put it into a raid fight, then you can laugh at about anything. Now sure, if it's full of missiles and fuel, it's about as heavy as your model. But at that stage you shouldn't really be dogfighting yet, because if you do it, you are 100% going to get third party. And if it's the middle of the map or the middle of the match, why would you take off with full fuel and full missiles? Well, full missiles probably, but why would you take 60 minutes of fuel if you landed and it's like 2v2 or something like that? There's no real reason. Now the real game starts. A lot of planes. Missile goes for the wrong guy, but it doesn't really matter, because I'm actually more worried about an F5 than I am about an F4E. Here comes missile number 1. There's one glaring issue that the F-14 has. It's super hot. So you need to cut that throttle back to about, well, 80%, 90% before you start flaring, otherwise the missile is just gonna track right through it. 88% right now, and the F4E just really wants to shoot us down with missiles. And now he's out of them. The other guy is too far away. And what do? We straight line it. The F4E for right now is actually catching us. But let's see how long he actually manages to do that. Here comes another missile. We barely dodge it. It was a radar missile this time. But we're reaching that Mach 1 area. And the J-37 is also shooting all of his missiles at us. And people have been telling me, you can't flare missiles in the F-14. Here you have it. Clearly you can. Here come more missiles. And I wanted to guide the back missile into the F4E. Unfortunately, I also had to go defensive for the other one. And then it made it so that, well, I couldn't do that, because I would kill myself to the other missile if I actually tried to do that. Right now they're both on my 6, but I have the flight performance to turn outside of that turn circle, shoot someone in the head-on. That's going to connect very easily, and we are just going to be flying away. And look at that F4E. He was catching us. And now we are completely dusting him. We are also shooting off some missiles of our own, and decreasing our drag. This guy is really committed to trying to kill us. Unfortunate for him, it's not going to happen. The Viggen is flying away. We go to auto mode Or we go to manual wing mode, we sweep them all the way out, we go vertical, make sure that the Viggen doesn't come back, because we are going to be a little bit in a pickle if that actually does come around to happen. But after lowering the F-14 vertical, we are simply going to dip. I don't want to be too vertical, I don't want to be too vulnerable. So we lock up the F-5 because he's clearly going for the MiG-27, he's heading towards us. We're going to guide that missile in quite nicely, and as that missile is flying towards the F-5, we're going to go for guns and shoot down the Viggen. Nice little double kill, and we are on our merry way. The F-4E is still trying to shoot us down, not really being successful at it. The F-4E is now chasing the MiG-23 for a little bit, but then he breaks off. It's now 3v1. So what do? We are gonna commit to him now. We still have 12 minutes of fuel, which is not the most amount, simply because, well, our plane absolutely drinks it. It almost inhales it. And the F-4E is basically done, because we are faster than him, we accelerate better than him, we have better missiles than him. And well, we just have everything better than him. He's going to be trying to run away. I'm not going to be missiling after this one. I see that, I instantly turn it off, because I don't want it to go for the MiG-23. Trying to lock him back up, but the missile is flying away. And we should be completely fine. And I'm not going to be shooting it anymore, because I'm just asking for a team kill. So I'm just waiting, I'm just seeing what the F-4E will do, I'm just seeing what the MLD will do, and I'm going to be breaking off, and I'm going to be letting this guy just die to the MiG-23. The MiG-23 crits him, but looking at the amount of ammo that he just sprayed, I have a sneaking suspicion that he's probably out of ammo now. So I'm going to be locking him up, I'm not going to be stealing him, I'm just going to be flying around him, I want to push him into the ground. So I tell the guy that I won't steal it, and I'm just going to be seeing what I can do here, and then he says kill him. He is crit. So what can he say except you're welcome? What do? I just spray at him. Spray a little bit of a line. He tries to go defensive. And he just flies right into it and simply ceases to exist. Next match. Going with the first merge. Aim 7F. MiG-23. Not going to be doing very well. He eats the missile and goes back to the hangar. Then we go for the J8B. Make sure we don't get gunned down by the FG1. We dodge him. Aim 7F. Good track, but he shoots an IR missile at it and we don't manage to connect it. Go defensive against the Harrier, make sure that we don't get slammed by him. And then we line up our guns and crit the MiG-21. And now I just want to leave the area, but the FG1 that sprayed at us from the start is still going to be trying to chase us. 3 kilometers behind us, we are faster than him, we will be outrunning him, we are faster than him in the long run as well. So I'm not sure why even bothers trying to chase me. So we just make him fly straight, makes it an easy target for Twitter. They don't like people that go straight. And then he instantly comes out of the closet to defend himself. He then goes head on with the Twitter user and sets him on fire. And now he is completely fine with flying straight again. However, Twitter is committed and they will go through your search history to make sure that even if you were going straight very long ago, they will find you regardless. The FG1 gets cancelled and now there's just an F4EJ as well as a Harrier around. The EJ here is not doing very well, he's going pretty slow, and as we mentioned before, the flight performance just is not it. Too busy going head on with the other Phantom that he collects a missile and gets sent back to the hangar. Then we lock up the Harrier with the ACM mode. Lock up the missile, pretty easy kill, and the missile decides it doesn't want to play today and hits the water behind it. Not entirely sure why that kept happening. Sometimes it goes for AI, for like a random target that's in between the radar scope somewhere, and sometimes it just decides he's not feeling it and just go to sleep. So, as you can see, F-14s are yet again ejaculating all over the battlefield, and there is Phoenixes flying around everywhere. So I want to make sure that I waste as much of those Phoenixes as possible, and then we turn back around. There's a MiG-23 behind us. So I want to make sure that I lock him up first, and then we can outrange him with the AIM 7F quite handily. Try to lock him up without ACM because it has a little bit more range. Don't manage to do so, so we switch to ACM, instantly locks him up, and the AIM 7F is on its way to pay its respects. This guy is not doing very well. If he had notched it, I would have switched to the normal radar. Not the pulse Doppler, just the normal one. And that missile wouldn't have had too many issues trying to track it in. You can actually change your lock type after you break the lock by pressing your change radar mode key. And then you can go from pulse Doppler to regular radar. And if people are notching you and they aren't actually using chaff, well, not most, but a lot of people actually don't really use chaff anymore because they think they're getting pulse Doppler. And then your normal radar just kind of guides the missile in, because they're so busy trying to notch that they simply die. If they're too low, just like this guy, it doesn't really matter. Even the pulse Doppler won't really keep up with that one. And he's gonna dodge it quite nicely by going right under it. Missile doesn't do anything. And we just continue towards the furball, because I'm not really too worried about an Su-22 that gets in our back line. My entire team is probably gonna be focusing that dude, and I will probably fly in here alone. But that's okay. I look up the F-104. I don't want to instantly shoot it for two reasons. He's notching my radar, as well as the F-5 just shot a missile at him. But I just switch targets to the F-4E. I know that he can't really lock me up right here. So at this speed, what is he realistically going to do? Not much, especially since he's going for someone else as well. He flies nice and straight and collects another missile. I want to go for the guy at high altitude, but I notice his MiG-21 being very slow. So I lock him up with an IR missile. That's going to track very easily. He gets sent back to the hangar as well, and the guy above us then collects another missile, which is probably an AIM-9J, because that's the only missile the F4F can actually carry. Brilliant stuff by the MiG-23. So the F-14 decides to go for us for a little bit, but he has everyone riding his asshole, so I'm not really too worried about him, because if he really wants to commit to us, then he's gonna be long dead before he gets near us. So I'm just gonna be flying away for a little bit, just the same way that we did with the FG-1, and then I notice that I'm flying over the airfield. I didn't really mean to do that, and you're gonna see me do a double take in a second here. Yep, there we are. I wasn't actually aware, but I mean it doesn't really matter in the long run, because I didn't really need the AA to get away from him anyway. So we then go back for the F-104, we lock him up, and I mean, what can I say? Simply not maneuverable enough at that speed, especially at this range as well. And he just can't really do much. With the F-104S and AIM-9Fs or AIM-7Fs, what you kind of want to make sure is that they don't even lunge on you, unless you give them a very bad one. In the F-104 you're gonna struggle a little bit with them, because you're simply not that maneuverable. You can try to snap roll out of the way, but with the AIM-7F, the proportional navigation is actually good enough to the point where very often it simply explodes right in your face. If you time it perfectly, you can dodge them, but dealing with AIM-7Fs in the F-104, it's not very enjoyable, and especially if it's an F-14. You might out-accelerate it, but that's about it. The A-10 then does a better job dodging AIM-7Fs than most of the other enemies that I faced this entire video, and we simply go vertical. We have too much speed here, there's very little this guy can do, and you might say, well, the A-10 turns better than you. Well, actually it doesn't, and it doesn't help that I'm going triple his top speed right now. So we fall back right on top of him, and I try to lock him up. I know that probably won't track because he's going to flare, but I just want to get rid of the weight. Why not? Might as well attempt it, because I'm kind of on the clock here trying to kill him, because I don't want my teammates to do the same thing. So we have him energy trapped. He can try to pitch up, but he's just going to stall out. I'm still going 800, which is still higher than his top speed. And then we just put him in the ground, because he is simply too slow. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.